Things up on top. All hail our demon overlords in the hands of Gavin Marr, taking down Chris Botello in pretty convincing fashion, is now the tournament leader at 12-1 here, Reed.
Yeah, the tournament leader 12-1. So as mentioned, he has an excellent chance of being in the top 8. Like he likely won't be paired this round against someone who wants to draw with him, but a win or a draw and he's in. If he loses, he could have an opportunity to either play or draw the final round. And even if he loses that, he'll be 12-3 with presumably pretty strong tiebreakers, and who knows what happens then. But yeah, you can see from the standings there's not enough players with the opportunity to get to 13 wins with 2 more wins. So we're going to be talking about players at 12-1-2, 12-2-1, maybe even 12-3 with the strongest tiebreakers rounding out our top 8.
Oh, well, we do indeed have our feature match deck lists ready to go. So let's jump in and take a look here at Xander Nomenko playing Esper Pixie. Now this we haven't seen a lot of. I think this is the first time I've seen it personally on the broadcast. This is the deck that everyone was trying to beat not too long ago. Rock in 4 copies of This Town Ain't Big Enough alongside Storm Chaser's talent to do this super annoying loop of bouncing all their crap and then hitting you for lots of damage. Why did this fall out of favor, Reed?
It's a great question. This was one of the top decks prior to the release of Tarkir Dragonstorm. It could just be that the rest of the decks caught up to Pixie with, Corey Steelcutter, Tursa Light Shatter, these Meringue River Regent being key cards that upgraded existing decks. You made a great point yesterday about Hopeless Nightmare really becoming a little bit ineffective. First of all, players are just preparing for it with the likes of Obstinate Baloth and Wiltleaf Liege, but also some people are going to discard a Abhorrent Oculus. Some people are going to discard an Omniscience. So that card, like playing sort of a naked Hopeless Nightmare on turn 1 is a little bit less appealing than it might have been 2 months ago. So those are some possible reasons why this deck has become less popular, but less effective is up for debate because here we have Xander with 2 rounds to go making a run at top 8.
Certainly is. He's sitting at 11-2 currently. Let's take a look at his opponent's deck list. Julian Corfine rocking the big bad of the tournament, but is it as bad as everyone expects it or expected it to be, playing Izzet Prowess?
Right, so this is going to do a lot towards answering your question, Ailey, of, is Esper Pixie outdated? Can it not hang with the big bad, that's new on the town in Izzet Prowess? Or has it actually been strong all this time and it has the tools and can be well set up, especially in the hands of a strong player like Xander, to beat the most popular, most successful deck in the field? So
this matchup, I do believe, is just a win and in for is potentially going to be our first top 8 player. Xander Nomenko up at the top of your screen. He is on a multi 5. Up against Julian Corfine, who looks to have a healthy hand of 7.
And Ailey, this is a high-stakes match, not just for the players who are trying to make top 8 here, but also in our respective top 8 predictions. One of the key differences is that you had a 3rd copy of Izzet Prowess, whereas I was only predicting 2. And in place, I had 1 Pixie deck.
Oh, you think you're smart, huh?
Well, we'll see. Based on the result of this match, one of us might look very smart.
Yes, indeed. You can thank me for that, actually, because you just put wild card initially and said that is non-committal. Pick an archetype.
Yeah, you called me out on that.
So I'll take half the win there. We can share. Nice start here so far with the Pixie, Nurturing Pixie, hitting the board, bouncing. What did it bounce? I did miss that. Did it bounce back the Storm Chaser's talent, which I believe was in Spell Pierced?
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
And we should note that Xander started this game on a mulligan to 5, but if there's any deck that could recover and put up a nice early game showing, it's probably Pixie, because the whole idea of nurturing Pixie, This Town Ain't Big Enough, Fear of Isolation, is that you get multiple uses out of your most impactful cards. Yeah, no,
certainly an excellent deck when it is at a disadvantage in terms of cards in hand. And we will now see Drake Hatcher alongside an Opt to create a Mug token. This is a card I have been wanting to see do some cool stuff, so maybe Julian can deliver for us this time around.
Opt? You've been really excited to see Opt?
No, the birdie maker. The Drake lady.
I knew what you meant.
I'm just making sure everyone else does. So, hopefully we'll get to see some Drakes off of the newest addition to the archetype. On the other side of things, though, Julian's tapped out. Xander has the perfect opportunity to kill this Drake Hatcher if he's got a way to do so, courtesy of one of the enchantments. But first things first, Optimistic Scavenger. This card was an all-star in the limited format for Duskmourn.
For 1 mana, it can really unload a lot of power and toughness, especially when you start seeing Hopeless Nightmares and Stormchaser's Talents being bounced and recast.
Yeah. So just a pre-combat Scavenger. 3 mana available for Xander. He's going to want to start drawing some cards.
An interesting thing about the Pixie archetype is, as the card pool of Standard has expanded, there becomes so many options in how you want to build it. One of the cool new cards from Dragonstorm is Sun Pearl Kirin.
Yeah.
Really, really powerful 1-2 punch with the Spiteful Hexmage, because Spiteful Hexmage enters the battlefield with a curse roll. Then you can bounce that roll with the Kirin and free up your 3-2 creature and draw a card. That's turn 1, turn 2. However, Xander not electing to play that
sounds way more fun.
That particular combination. Also, we've seen Pixie players sort of diversify into a wider range of color combinations, sometimes plain black-white, sometimes Mardu, Abzan, whatever it might be. But Xander's deck is pretty traditional, I would say, as far as Pixie decks go.
I don't think I've seen anyone playing the Spiteful Hexmage. At least not in any recent events. That sounds so sweet, because as soon as I saw Sun Pearl Kirin, I was like, oh yeah, this is going into Pixie. It's just like a slam dunk include, right? But you don't really get the value off of it if you're not bouncing a token too. Not getting maximum value. You want that, right?
Meanwhile, the story of this game, I think, is just the Mulligan to 5 really catching up with Xander. He had a great opening couple of turns. And maybe I'm counting him out too early. If he has an instant speed, bit of interaction here, the game continues.
Looks like he's got something, and it's going to be... This town ain't big enough. So, bouncing the 2-1 and the Drake Hatcher. Or at least an attempt was being made to do so.
So, a nice way to sort of avoid disaster and not take a bunch of damage from Monstrous Rage. Yeah. It's not really a full value. This town ain't big enough, because Xander, unfortunately, with his Stormchaser's Talent having gotten Spell Pierced, he doesn't have any value-generating permanent that he's able to bounce, which he really needs given the resource deficit.
I mean, yeah, thinking of it now, Julian, that was an excellent thing to Spell Pierce, to make sure that Xander isn't able to get incremental value off of it.
So here's the Scavenger being replayed, a pass of the turn. If you're a Xander fan, you really hope he drew an instant, you know, another copy of this town or a removal spell, maybe Sun Pearl Kirin.
He does have the 4 copies of Nowhere to Run. I was kind of expecting that a couple turns back to kill off the Drake Hatcher, but doesn't look like, at least currently, that that's an option.
Yeah, I'm not super optimistic that Xander's going to survive this turn based on the double Slick Shot show-off. I mean, the best he can hope for is an answer to one of them, but even then he's taking a bunch of damage, and the ground creatures don't line up particularly well as to be able to block those.
Yeah, Torch the Tower was revealed there, alongside a land, I believe, so that gets rid of one of these creatures. And then, yeah, gotta think that's lights out unless Xander has some instant speed interaction.
So an interesting thing having Julian Julian being forced to play into the open mana and the uncertainty. What you could do is just attack with everything, let Xander line up blocks, and say, okay. In which case Xander could survive at 1 life, but basically lose his whole board.
Yeah.
Or if you think, hey, I'm spelling blood here, I don't think you really have the right interactive card, I'm just going to torch the tower, one of your blockers, and get you with these slick shots. It's actually, if Xander has a single removal spell or a this town, I think the torch the tower might just wind up being lethal up front, because you remove a blocker, Xander bounces one of the slick shots, but then one of the ground creatures gets through. So yeah, I can't think of any single card Xander can have this is going to end well for him.
Yeah. So Xander essentially needs 2 pieces of interaction here. This is our 2nd spell cast after the sleight of hand. So another monk joins the battalion. Okie dokie. Got some mana. Can you survive, Xander? Let's see. Ow. Oh, yeah, and I have to hit myself with them lands. Ouchies. Sun Procurin. Okay. So that enters, gets the Pixie back to hand.
Yeah, so one of the slick shots, which is a 5-power creature, is going to go unblocked, and then one of the ground creatures, which are all at least 2 power, is going to go unblocked as well, and that's the end of the game.
Whee! Turn things sideways. No other piece of interaction for Xander, so the multi-5 unfortunately undoing him at the end there. So Julian picks up game 1 here in round 14.
Sometimes you see a game where it's just so clear-cut that the resource disadvantage made the difference. Like after Xander played a flurry of, 4 or 5 spells in the first 3 turns of the game, if he had had a strong follow-up, just spot him a Kaito or 2 removal spells or, some kind of value-generating permanent that he can bounce and replay, it's pretty easy to imagine him having gotten ahead and stayed ahead there. But instead, it's like, here's all my cards. Go, nothing to trigger my optimistic scavenger, nothing to follow up and press my advantage, and that's just what a mulligan can do to you sometimes.
You know what the problem is? He's only running 3 copies of Stock Up, not the full 4.
Stock Up would have been nice there.
Unfortunate there for Xander, but the show must go on, and the match must go on too. And you know what else must go on? No, it's not my heart. It is my hype for the upcoming set in Final Fantasy that is coming up next for Magic the Gathering. Go and pre-order your cards at starcitygames.com/MTG-Fin. Go get some sweet, sweet card art. Even if you just like the characters and you don't give 2 hoots what the text says, I'm sure a lot of players are just going to be buying them for that. So yeah, if you know any Final Fantasy fans out there, well, you just found their next Christmas/birthday present. You'd be pretty happy if you got Final Fantasy cards, huh?
I'm in there. I've placed a pre-order. I'm getting ready to gear up for Pro Tour Final Fantasy. So this is a set that's going to have a huge impact on basically every format in Magic. Standard, Vintage, Legacy, Modern, Commander, whatever it might be. It's going to be a fully supported draft format. So any Magic player can have some fun with Final Fantasy, and I think lots of us will. I'm
looking forward to it. I am not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan, but I really did enjoy that limited format. And, I don't want to say that the other sets aren't as loved or as polished, because there have been some excellent ones, obviously. But I do think that a little extra care is taken with the Universes Beyond ones, just because they have to the IP justice, right?
AKA appease angry fans.
Yes, make fan happy. Then it's going to be a good set, I think. I really like Vivi. Is that his name? VIVI?
Yeah.
Yeah. That card looks so cool.
Yeah, Vivi's one of the more iconic characters from the series. And yeah, super, super cool. I like a lot of the way that they have treated the the Black Mage and Wizard class, where it like pays you off for.
Look how cute it is.
There we have it.
It's adorable. I want to build this. Some of the CDH community, well, actually quite a lot of them are going nuts about this card. So I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I just want to play it in a dumb spells deck. But yeah, this is so cool. Do you think it can find a spot in Standard?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, it's just a high potential card, right?
Yeah, just put it in the Izzet decks. Izzet Prowess here. Have a new friend. I know you don't like 3-mana stuff necessarily, but this looks kind of fun. Players consulting the sideboards and just making sure they have what they need going into game number 2 here. What is Xander going to be leaning on the most, would you say?
Well, as is usually the case, the players in this event have probably given a lot of attention to Izzet Prowess with their main decks. So, you know, if somebody's out there going, I'm going to bring in 10 sideboard cards against Izzet, I would reply with the question of, hey, why aren't those 10 cards just in your main deck in the first place?
Yeah.
But certainly there's opportunities to round things out, perfect your interactive suite of cards. So Duress is an option. Grim Bauble, if Xander decides he's a little bit at risk of like falling behind. He has some counter spells. Preacher of the Schism is a card that we've talked about as just it's pretty difficult for Izzet to get that off the battlefield because most of their removal is the red damage-based type of stuff. So yeah, I think this is going to be largely about like small tweaks here and there. Maybe bring in the 2 Preachers and perfect optimize your suite of removal.
Xander looking at a hand of 7. I think he's on a mull to 6. Julian, I think, is happy. I'm not sure if he mulled, though.
I could see one of the stressors in Xander's hand is he has 2 Darkslick Shores as his only sources of, as his only lands, so no white mana available.
And he's on the play, so that's not great.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing. Like the consistency issues of a 3-color deck leading to some awkward openings, some extra mulligans, does add up over the course of a long event.
Gonna keep. So I don't think that was a mull then. Great. Both players, 7 cards in hand. Top of the deck needs to be kind to Xander. Darkslick Shores to kick things off. And we are gonna make Julian discard here. Goodbye, Monstrous Rage. Wow, discarding the best card in your deck. What the heck, man?
Jim and Corey in the morning had a really good discussion about when and if you sideboard out Monstrous Rage. Like, is this a card that is just always great, or can it be a liability if your opponent is prepared with a lot of removal and board sweepers? And yeah, I don't really have much to add to how they broke it down in the morning, which was basically like, you can think about it. But yeah, definitely a great card that could be part of a balanced configuration even after sideboarding.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate gotcha card right now, as we're going to see another copy of Hopeless Nightmare hit the board. Now what does Julian chuck? I don't imagine he's got any Obstinate Balos in the sideboard, huh?
No, I did check just to be thorough, but I don't think there's anything that can really be discarded for profit in the Izzet deck.
That's so funny. I did see a couple of control decks playing these green behemoths in the sideboard. I'm like, what on earth? Okay, clearly Pixie is a problem. Sleight of hand, helping shore up Julian's draws a little bit here. Hopefully he won't be dealing with too much more discard, and hopefully Xander finds a white source of mana. Goes down to 2, goes down 2 to 18. Ugh. Rat-row, spaghetti-o.
Yeah, poor Xander, I think, has just drawn only white cards for his draw steps so far.
There's nowhere to run, so sure, that can kill this little guy if he gets too big. Or kill a monk if needs be, but I mean, this is not exactly a juicy target right now, and it can get out of range if there's enough nonsense in Julian's hand. Never mind, it dies. Okay, nothing.
Wow.
Huh. Duress, let's see. Yes, please. This is the only way we get hand cam. No! never mind. Well, we know there was a negate.
I like Julian's position because just even on the board, he can level the Storm Chaser's talent to get some slow long-term value.
Let's get the negate again. What would you pick? There's some nonsense in that bin. It's negate, sleight of hand. Oh, no, never mind.
Oy.
Hi, Rel.
That is a powerful sideboard card that Julian has brought in here. Really anticipating a heavy resource trading game and bringing in the Planeswalker that if the opponent's just packing all Grim Baubles, cut downs, nowhere to runs, and you drop a Ral Crackling Wit, you're going to be in great shape. Alternatively, if your opponent's mana screwed, unable to cast their white spells, this thing is going to absolutely run away with the game.
Goodness me. So, Ral hits the board. Pluses. Gets triggers off of any non-creature spell being cast. Excuse me, gets counters. Loyalty counters off of any non-creature being cast. And this is train wreck city for Xander. Got a feel for him.
Yeah, definitely unfortunate string of 2 games here. Some bad mulligans in the first one and just being unable to cast white spells in the second one. Yeah, there's no way to sugarcoat it. That's heartbreaking in a high-stakes match like this.
Yep. And on the other side of things, though, Julian is going to press the advantage. And mana screw happens in Magic, so don't muck about. Get the game one and done, and on to the next one. That is going to be it. So heartbreak there for Xander. Unable to lock up his top 8 slot this round, but still one more round to go. Julian Corfine improving his record to 11-2-1.